Focus now on this story that broke this morning. Good news, ultimately, after a week-long ordeal. The Mpumalanga municipal manager and her driver, abducted last week, are safe and home this evening. They were found on the side of a road in Diepsloot, northern Johannesburg, earlier this morning. Maggie Skosana and her driver, Gugu Mtsweni, were allegedly kidnapped outside the Nkangala municipal buildings by men impersonating police officers last Thursday. Skosana has been reunited with her family. eNCA's Moloko Moloto has been gathering details, also speaking to Maggie Skosana, and he joins us now. Moloko, this is a story that everyone feared the worst, but incredible news this morning that the Mpumalanga municipal manager had been found alive with her driver in Diepsloot. Please, could you take us to the details of where exactly she was found, because this is a woman we know who relies on a wheelchair to get around. Her wheelchair had been found along with her car a few days prior. Tell us about the state she was found in. Was she simply sitting on the side of the road? Had she been taken in by somebody? Just explain.
Hello, Sally Badet. Well, 6 days after that daring kidnapping incident of Maggie, municipal manager of Nkangala District Municipality, along with her driver, Gugu Mtsweni, just outside the offices of the municipality on Thursday. The two have now returned home. They have been reunited with their families. So we understand that moments after they had been kidnapped, the car that belongs to Mrs. Skosana, along with her wheelchair, were actually found just outside Middelburg. The car was still idling, and that was an indication that indeed the two were in trouble. Now, you correctly said that she is a person living with disability, and she relies chair for mobility. When we spoke to her today, she told us that she had to rely during her days of capture on the two men, her captors, who, whenever she had to go to the bathroom, would rely on them having to pick her up, and that obviously says her privacy really was not respected. But we heard from the police saying that they were actually found last night, Sally. The police say that Ms. Gugu Mtsweni managed to walk towards the N14 highway just near Diepsloot outside Johannesburg last night, and she was spotted by a taxi driver who phoned the police, and when the police arrived, they went into the bush where they found Ms. Skosana, who was bound, and they rescued them, took them to hospital, and only in the early hours of this morning the two were reunited with their families, having driven back to Middelburg. So this morning we arrived, Sally, at the home of the Skosanas, and we found the neighbors, the well-wishers, the extended family members gathering at their home, and you could sense a sense of relief among the people who were in there. And we had an opportunity of speaking to Gugu, speaking to the Mrs. Skosana, and I asked her what she thought the motive was. And I did say, considering the fact that you are the accounting officer, and Sally, remember that her municipality in September actually awarded a 1.2 billion rand contract for a bulk water infrastructure project, and as the accounting officer, her word is final, her signature is final. She's the one who appoints. I asked whether she believes or suspects that her kidnapping had anything to do. He said, look, I would rather not comment and leave that to the police. But let's listen to her just as she was outlining the ordeal, considering that the fact that the people who had captured her pretended to be police officers. Sally.
I'm traumatized even now, and it even makes it difficult for me to even trust, police van, for instance, because those people were impersonating themselves as police officers. So you wouldn't know next time when you are stopped, is it a real police officer or a person impersonating to be a police officer? So, yeah, it will be a trauma. But I believe that myself and my employer, we should be able to look into it and deal with the matter, because I need to go back to work after some time. It was quite difficult, to be quite honest with you, because we did not know where we were, first of all. We did not know people that we were with in the house, and we did not know the day that we are going to be released from that house. So we were not mentally okay, but we kept on praying, and we believe that God will see us through.
Wow, this is a remarkable woman, which is, I need to go back to work. This is the kind of civil servant we should be putting her name up in lights for, her bravery and also her faith. So she says she was released. It seems the kidnappers released her ultimately. Any insight into who the kidnappers are and where she was held? Was she held in Diepsloot here in Johannesburg, or was she held closer to Mpumalanga? Do you know?
Well, Sally, she says that she has absolutely no idea where she was held, because they were blindfolded as they were being driven from Middleburg to wherever they were kept at. And of course, I did ask whether she would be able to identify those people who had kidnapped them. And she says, look, the difficulty is that when they captured them, they were wearing balaclavas, and they are not in a position to say it was so and so. Now, we spoke to the husband of Mrs. Skosana, who is saying, look, we are relieved at the fact that the two are back. It was the most difficult days of their lives as the two families. And I asked whether there was ever a communication between the family and the kidnappers. He says, yes, the kidnappers reached out to them and they demanded ransom. However, he doesn't want to divulge how much they demanded. And I asked whether they paid that ransom. He says, no, we did not pay even a single cent. Let's listen to Mr. Vusi Skosana.
The communications were made to me by the kidnappers, where we involved the SAPS and private investigators that were appointed by the family, and for their release, for her release, we negotiated, and then we pleaded with them using our private investigators to assist in terms of releasing her, and that's one yesterday it was done, and she was released.
Meaning you've had to pay them to secure for her safety?
No, we didn't pay anything as a family. And what we had the faith of saying, but as the family, we don't have such. And also, we wanted them to understand the situation that my wife, she was under with. Thank you.
How much did they demand?
I cannot divulge that because they were fake media statement that the kidnappers demanded 5 million ransom, which as the family we don't know that.
Oh, and it's such a relief that this accounting officer, municipal manager in Mpumalanga, Maggie Skosana, and her driver, Gugu Msweni, who actually went and got help once they were released, are safe and sound. But until we get to the bottom of who these kidnappers are, I would imagine they're going to be very fearful, not knowing where the threat has come from. Thank you so much for bringing us all the dramatic details of that story. That's our reporter, Moloko Moloto.